Hi all, welcome back to a new episode for the economy of the week gone by from April 16 to 22. Let's see what made news with regard to economy in India. So there was so much going on with two new states coming up for lithium reserves by the Geological Survey of India. Then you had the logistics index ranking of India that was done. There was the news about the carbon border tax with regard to EU. And many more things like the gig workers, a bill brought out by Rajasthan with regard to the gig workers, the Jan Vishwas bill that was discussed, and also the health standards, rules and regulatory norms by the Food Safety and Standards Authority of India with regard to a recent video on Bonvita. So let's look into many of the other issues that made news with regard to economy for the week gone by from April 16 to 22nd, and this is really helpful for you from the UPSC Mains GS Paper 3 Economy with regard to economic development and growth and the various sectors of the economy, important policies, the mineral resources, indices like the World's Logistics Report, etc. So the very first is that the Geological Survey of India now is looking for reserves, exploring lithium reserves after its finding in the Salal Hamaina of the Riyasi district of Jammu and Kashmir, which happened just last month, and this is the first finding of lithium reserves in the country with regard to J&K. So now the GSI is looking for exploring the similar lithium reserves with regard to in Himachal Pradesh and Uttarakhand, apart from which it has found in Jammu and Kashmir. Now lithium is very important, and also India has been mostly importing all of its lithium reserves mainly from China, Australia and Argentina. Lithium is a rare earth mineral, and it is one of the key components that is used in manufacturing of batteries, having high energy density that are used in electric vehicles, smartphones and electronic equipment as well. So the latest discovery can really power India's electronic vehicle revolution and also be helpful in many other sectors as well. The discovery of lithium is also very significant for its use in rechargeable batteries for mobile phones, laptops, digital cameras, electric vehicles. It is also used in pacemakers, toys, clocks. It is a step towards self-reliant India with regard to lithium reserves, and this is a big news. And also lithium metal is made into alloys for use in various sectors, so it is alloyed with aluminium and magnesium, and this improves the strength and also makes it very lighter. So the magnesium lithium alloy is used for armor plating, the aluminium lithium alloy is used for aircraft, bicycles, frames and also high-speed trains as well. Lithium oxide is used in special glasses and glass ceramics. Lithium chloride is one of the main hygroscopic materials known and is used in air conditioning and industrial drying systems. Lithium stearate is used as an all-purpose high-temperature lubricant, and further lithium hydride is used as a method of storing hydrogen as a fuel. So these are the various advantages of lithium resources exploration in India. So along with Jammu and Kashmir, we are looking for lithium reserves in Himachal Pradesh and Uttarakhand because they are made of the same geological structure. The next big news is about gig workers. Now, gig workers is a very new concept in India, and these are mostly the delivery persons who work for various e-commerce platforms. And so, Blinkit delivery executives have carried out a strike. Let's see why. And this has now turned the spotlight on gig workers. So, this has resulted in the gig workers have faced a significant drop in their earnings from an average 600 to 700 a day. It has come down now from which was almost 1200 earlier. So almost half of the earnings they are earning which they did earlier before. The strike began after Blinkit rolled out its new payment structure for the delivery partners. So it does not call the employees as employees and it names them partners. Now this is another big issue as well. Under which minimum payout delivery salary has been slashed to 15 per day, which was actually 25. The new structure also bases incentives on the distance covered to execute the order. The later were also, and the payout for the personnel also has been scratched drastically. Now the workers are demanding the old pay structure to be restored. An old pay structure consisted of delivery and fuel incentives as well, which now are not being given. So the government, the lack of social security is what the main feature of this gig economy jobs, and platforms recognize gig economy workers as partners and not as workers. So they really do not have any social security rights, paid leaves, etc. They also do not have the chance of paid negotiation, which is severely curtailed. Now, in September 2021, the Indian Federation of App-Based Transport Workers moved the Supreme Court demanding the centre to ease the suffering of the workers affected by the pandemic by declaring gig workers as platform workers and platform workers as unorganized workers, so that they can actually come under the Unorganized Workers Social Security Act of 2008. And now the hearing is still pending in this regard. Let me tell you that many countries have already regularized gig workers. Some of them are UK, US, New Zealand, Israel and Mexico. Recently, Rajasthan has also, it is the first state in the country to bring up a bill with regard to the welfare of the gig workers. So it seeks to set up a welfare board and also a fund in which the cess on every transaction in these e-commerce platforms have to be deposited in the fund, and also all the gig workers have to register themselves on the board. And the platforms which do not actually accept or work according to the rules and regulations of the bill that are brought out, they will not be allowed to function in the state. So Rajasthan is coming up with the bill, and now even Madhya Pradesh is following suit. So the next one is about the tariffs that India is imposing on the mobile phones, and now it's facing charges at the WTO. So India is going to appeal against the ICT import duties at the WTO. So complaints were filed by Europe, Japan and Taiwan at the WTO against the import duties that were levied by India on a range of IT products such as your phones, etc., laptops, etc. New Delhi has faced a setback at the WTO Dispute Settlement Panel, ruling against the import duty that it has levied on a range of information communication technology products like mobile phones, laptops, chargers, etc. India now is therefore expected to appeal at the WTO on the imposition of the tariffs on mobile phones, electronic components, in a bid to ensure that the ruling does not impact the country's domestic manufacturing goals. Especially these sectors come under the PLI scheme, and they have seen a growth as of recent. So the panel ruled that India has violated the global trade rules. What are the global trade rules? It is called as the Information Technology Agreement. So it said that India has violated the global trade rules and sided on the side of the European Union, Japan and Taiwan. India raised the duty to 20% despite the opposition from a number of trade organizations to protect its local industry. India is a signatory to the Information Technology Agreement, which came into effect in 1997 and accounts for 95% of the world trade in products such as computers, telecom equipment, semiconductors, scientific instruments, etc. As a part of the signatory to the agreement, India is required therefore to eliminate the tariffs on these products. Now, if the appellate body rules against India, it would mean that the country would have to make changes and remove off the duty structure which it is imposing on the imported goods. However, their chances very dim because the WTO appeals mechanism is not functioning properly, as the US has blocked the appointments of the appellate body, leading to most of the panel reports being into void and leaving the disputes unresolved. Therefore, there is a chance for India in a safe zone right as of now, because there's the members are not complete on the panel, and unless and until the panel is complete, the appeals cannot be heard. So the next important news is with regard to the profits that the oil companies have been making because of the less price for crude from which we are sourcing them from Russia. So now the government has increased the windfall levy on the domestic crude from 6,000 rupees, and it was nil once upon a time. So India first imposed the windfall profit tax on the oil companies, joining a growing number of nations who taxed the supernormal profits of the energy companies. But international oil prices have cooled, and eroding profit margins at both the oil producers and refiners have therefore brought down the windfall domestic levy of tax. Now, India imposes windfall tax on the crude oil producers and the exporters on gasoline, diesel, aviation fuel to encourage private refiners to sell the fuel products domestically instead of shipping them overseas to take advantage of the robust refining markets margins in the global markets. Windfall tax, let me tell you, is a high tax levied by the government against certain industries when the economic conditions allow these industries to attract above average profits. While the rise in the international crude oil prices has been happening internationally, the finance ministry has imposed the windfall levy on the domestically produced crude, raising it to rupees 6,400 a ton from nil. However, considering the changes in the product prices, the levy again has been brought down to zero. The ministry notified the new rates will be effective from April 19. While the rise in the windfall levy on the domestically produced crude is likely to have a negative impact on ONGC Oil India, the lowering of the levy on the export-bound diesel is likely to benefit certain industries. So this is about the windfall levy, which is being imposed on the energy producers or the oil producers, etc. Now, the next big important news is with regard to this year. So this year is a El Nino year, and it's a it's bad news for the agriculture sector and also the inflation front. So there's already a dip in the reservoir levels in the country, and therefore this does not sign a good signal for the Kharif crops. So as India is grappling with scorching heat in the April, now the data from the Centre Water Commission shows that the water levels in various reservoirs is really bad compared to what it was in 2022. As of April 23, 2023, that's just a day before, the water in India's 146 reservoirs is 5% less than what it was in 2022. However, this picture is worse in many other areas such as the eastern India mostly. Around 88 reservoirs have seen less water than the 2002 levels, while 55 of them are seeing less water than the 10-year average number. The data shows that the water level in the major reservoirs in the eastern India is lower than the 10-year average, especially in the states of Jharkhand, Bihar, Nagaland, West Bengal, Odisha and Tripura. The situation is worse in Bihar and West Bengal. It is 51% and 26% lesser than the 10-year average. Odisha too, the water level storage is lesser than 14% than the 10-year average, and the situation is different in North India, but because they are having better water resources, where the water is 38% higher than what it was 33% last year. Now, the reasons for the low water in the reserves is due to the heat especially, and low rainfall in the eastern India when the rest of the country were having normal rainfalls. So the possibility of a El Nino year, low food grain production, a mixed outlook for the monsoon is raising concern, especially on the inflation front. And this is bringing the attention of the government as also for the RBI as well. The most important next news is about the pharma firms. Now they are focusing on biosimilars. So what are biosimilars? So pharma firms such as Dr. Reddy's, Aurobindo Pharma, Biocon Biologics, we know that we have a PLI scheme for the pharma firms as well to especially increase self-reliance and also make India the major exporter and the pharmacy of the world. So now the pharmacy companies are looking at biosimilars. The drug makers are sharpening their focus on biosimilar segment, and one of the three most important pharma companies in this is Dr. Reddy's, Aurobindo Pharma, Biocon Biologics. So they are wiring the biosimilar capabilities, especially there is increased demand for biosimilars in the outside Western countries especially. So a biosimilar is an identical copy of the original drug, which is also called as a biologic, manufactured by different companies. Biologics are made of different biological products such as the blood, proteins, or living organisms such as viruses and bacteria, and the biologics are used to prevent, treat and cure several medical conditions. So the focus now is on biosimilars, which is an identical copy of the original drug. So government wants to make India the pharmacy of the world, and we have shown that especially during the COVID period with regard to production of vaccines, and that too at a very, very less cost. Now, the Food Safety and Authority of India is examining the health star ratings. So it has received many comments after the Bonvita ad, which show that the sugar content of Bonvita is very higher than the other components which it says it has, and this poses a risk to the children's health. So the Food Safety Authority of India has received many comments, especially on its health star rating regulations, which it actually brought out in 2018 to identify high salt, sugar and fat content on the processed foods. So these regulations or these norms have to be labeled on the front of the packet of the packaged foods, and these will show the high content of fat, salt and sugar which is available, so that the consumers can make informed decisions. Now the regulations aim to rate the food products on a scale of 0.5 to 5 on the standard of nutrition. The draft was issued by the Food Safety and Standards Authority of India on the ratings for comment in September 2022. Some have supported the rating, saying it's very good, like the health activists and the NGOs, while some others like the MSME sectors who locally produce a lot of ethnic and traditional food of India, saying that it will impact their business. Now Chile has such recommendations and it's mandatory, while the Food Safety and Standards Authority of India's proposal for these regulations will be voluntary for the beginning of 4-year period, and then it will be made mandatory. Now a group, a public interest body, that is the Nutrition Advocacy of Public Interest, has said that such regulations will improve the food habits of the people in the country and also check many lifestyle diseases. The next important news is with regard to now ease of doing business. So the Jan Vishwas bill will be brought in the monsoon session of the parliament, and it seeks to decriminalize various minor offences to promote ease of doing business in the country. The bill was later referred to a 31-member joint committee of the both houses of the parliament. Now besides decriminalizing minor offences, the bill envisages a rationalization of monetary penalties depending upon the gravity of the offence, bolstering trust-based governance. Now apart from British era regulatory compliances, there are almost 69,000 in number. There are 29,000 clauses in the center and the state that that can put an entrepreneur in a jail for non-compliance. The Jan Vishwas bill therefore was introduced in the will be introduced in the monsoon session, and it will redefine the way the regulatory landscape for entrepreneurs and manufacturers work in the country. The World Bank ranked India on the Ease of Doing Business report in 2020 on the scale of 63rd as against 77 in 2018. More ease of doing business means more relaxations, especially from the fear of being imprisoned. The criminal provisions create a fear and a sense of insecurity and therefore hamper investments in the country. On an average, if a manufacturing company has employees of 150 in number, it has to comply with almost 500 to 900 compliances that cost the manufacturer 12 to 18 lakh per year, and this is many a times hampering investment decisions and also leading to violation of norms and also foregoing this money or security which the employees get. Now the decriminalization of minor offences will not only make the lives easier, businesses easier, but it will also make judicial burden less cumbersome and less burdensome, because according to the National Judicial Data Grid as of March 31st, 2023, out of 4.24 crore cases that are pending, 3.16 are criminal cases, and mostly with regard to the businesses in the country. Now the Jan Vishwas bill proposes to decriminalize the minor offences by imposing penalties, monetary penalties instead. And going further, something related to climate change, something which the US is doing so that it wants to contribute to less carbon footprint, especially. So its carbon border adjustment mechanism or management, what we say, or the carbon border tax. Now the Indian government has begun ministerial consultation with the impact of the European Union's carbon tax on Indian industry, including whether this is going to act as a trade barrier. Now the EU has agreed on the world's first carbon border adjustment mechanism. It is a measure to aim to prevent carbon leakage. So this mechanism will initially cover several specific sectors which are carbon intensive, that is, their production leads to a lot of carbon emissions. So what exactly is this carbon border adjustment management? Now the tariff, it is a tariff, and it is also called as carbon border tax. So it is to be paid for the carbon emission that is linked to the goods that they sell in the EU. So for example, if steel is produced and it is producing a lot of carbon emissions, then it will be taxed more. So the carbon border tax for steel will be more. It is a tariff on carbon intensive products such as cement, fertilizer, steel, etc. The new level is to deter carbon intensive processes and encourage manufacturers to go green as much as possible in their processes and manufacturing capabilities. So this is what the EU is doing. Now this mechanism will initially cover several specific products in the form of most intensive carbon sectors at the risk of carbon leakage, for example, iron and steel, cement, fertilizers, aluminium, electricity, hydrogen especially. So the European Parliament has signaled a clear intention that it is also going to bring in plastics and chemicals by 2026 and all the sectors covered by the EU emissions trading system by 2030. Now India has raised a concern at the WTO regarding this. So the selective application of this carbon border rules, India has called them as discriminatory and protectionist. India has also written to the WTO raising concerns over the selective application of these rules like steel on the steel, aluminium, chemicals, plastic, polymers, fertilizers, which reflects underlying competitiveness concerns driving such measures. So the US on the other hand also has one mechanism which is also called as the Inflation Reduction Act to establish green technology industries, and the EU too has a carbon border adjustment mechanism, which is a global carbon tax levied on the imports into the bloc. So this is about the reducing the carbon footprint or reducing to global warming by the European Union. Now, another important news with regard to labour. So the Tamil Nadu government has extended the working hours from 8 hours to 12 hours. It has brought in the factories Tamil Nadu Amendment Bill 2023, which has a provision to extend the daily working shift of the factory workers to 12 hours from the existing 8 hours in case they opt for a 4-day week. Now, the legislation was passed amid strong opposition from the various political parties, which say it will give an opportunity to the companies to exploit the workers. The government, however, has assured that the total working hours in a week will remain unchanged at 48 and reiterated that the legislation provides flexibility working hours to the workers, which will specially benefit the women. The Tamil Nadu, let me tell you, has emerged as a hub of manufacturing companies and has the highest number of industrial workers in the country. Section 127 of the Central Labour Code enables the state government by notification to provide, among others, for flexible working hours, including overtime and spread over hours inclusive of rest intervals. Now, while the amendment introduces possibility of the 4-day week with 12-hour shifts, there have been fears that exemptions for certain factories would enable employers to bypass the legal provisions. The state now has a unit of 16 top electronic manufacturers like Nokia, Samsung, Flex, Dell, Motorola, Salcom, HP, Faxon, Petrogen, etc., who are assembling contracts for premium Apple phones. The state vision is to elevate the electronics industry to the same level as it has a thriving automobile, apparel and the footwear sectors in the same category. And the another most important news, the second last one, is that India now has got the 38th position in the World's Bank Logistic Index. So we are in the 38th position from the 44th among 139 countries in terms of investment in technology and logistic infrastructure. Now, India's logistic index was 54 in 2014 and it has improved to 44 in 2018, and now it is at 38. This is with regard to is because of the PM Gati Shakti project, also called as the National Master Plan for Multimodal Connectivity, which was launched in October 2021. Now, the National Logistic Policy that was launched last year ensures quick last mile delivery, end transport related challenges, saves time, money for the manufacturing in the logistics sector. Since 2015, the government has invested a lot in trade related soft and hard infrastructure connecting port gateways on both the coast to the economic poles in the hinterland as well. And the government now has launched the UDAN 5.0. So the government has launched the 5th round of the regional connectivity scheme called as UDAN to further enhance the connectivity, especially with regard to air connectivity in remote and regional areas of the country. The UDAN is proved to be a lifeblood for many regions which are now very well connected to other places because of the scheme. Now, the 5.0 scheme is a new, stronger version of the scheme which will raise the momentum and connect new routes, bring closer to the target of operationalizing 1,000 routes and 50 additional airports, heliports and water aerodromes in the future. Some of the key features are that it focuses on the category 2, that is 20 to 80 seats, and category 3 greater than 80 seats. Viability gap funding will be provided at a 600 kilometer stage length for both priority and non-priority areas, which were earlier capped to 500 kilometers. Airlines can now propose new routes that they want to fly under UDAN 5.0. The move replaces the previous system in which the ministry predetermined the routes that the airlines could operate on, and the airlines would also be required to submit for action a business plan after 2 months from the issuance of the letter of acquisition, wherein they they submit their aircraft acquisition plan, etc. at the time of technical proposal. The same route, let me tell you, will not be awarded to the single airline more than once, whether it is in different networks or in the same networks. And this is about the weekly roundup for your economy news with regard to what happened with the week gone by from April 16 to 22nd. If you did like, please do like, share, comment and subscribe, and follow me for your daily updates along with the weekly updates on your polity, governance, economy and international. Planning to come out with fortnight. So I shall see you in my next post, and until then, it's very happy learning.